always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to accompany a summer storm. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. If potatoes boil dry, it is a sign of rain, while a rooster crowing before midnight indicates a change in the weather. One must never use firewood from a tree that has been struck by lightning, as this exposes the house to similar attack. An excerpt from the book Superstition and the Superstitious by Eric Maple, published in 1971 by A.S. Barnes and Company in New Jersey. He also writes about a superstition from ancient Rome. For a Roman, even to take a haircut was quite an adventure, since it was supposed to cause a thunderstorm. Unquote. Must have been a lot of people getting haircuts yesterday. Some thoughts on a summer storm this hour with Lovers and Other Strangers from CHFI.com. Sarah McLachlan with An Ordinary Miracle and Brook Benton on a Rainy Night in Georgia. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Spring dawn. Turning toward the storm cloud, I lost sight of the bird. Julius Lester from a collection called Kaleidoscope, published in 1967 by Harcourt Brace and World. For those who listen to this broadcast well outside of the Toronto area, we had an extremely heavy thunderstorm pass through yesterday afternoon. You could sense its presence long before it even arrived. The lightning was intense, the thunder deafening. It wasn't the rain that concerned me, it was the fact that the atmosphere was so charged. The dog rarely barks at thunder. She did yesterday. I've been witness to others even more intense than this one, but it unnerved me listening to the violence in the sky. According to the poets of ancient India, the peacock, too, could forecast the weather, uttering its harsh cry when a storm was due. That, according to the Time Life series The Enchanted World, the Book of Beginnings, published in 1986. Not only is there a calm after a storm, but there's also a period of calm before it arrives. This is an excerpt from Chapter 27 of The Sunflower by Richard Paul Evans, published in 2005 by Simon & Schuster, and I quote, "Late afternoon of the second day, a storm moved in. The monkey's chatter grew louder under the burgeoning clouds, and the jungle fell into shadow. The rain pounded on the bungalow's roof, and water fell from the thatch eaves to the dark red dirt below, running in a million small veins back to the lake. It is the way of the jungle. All water seeks larger water." Unquote. But you've never experienced a thunderstorm until you've seen the ones that prowl the plain states and the western provinces. They can be beautiful to the extreme, frightening to anyone who has ever found him or herself in the path of one of these towering giants. The sound of distant thunder always reminds me of this one last excerpt from the writing of Robert James Waller in the Bridges of Madison County. More old songs, more dancing, more of his body against hers. She had become a woman again. There was room to dance again. In a slow, unremitting way, she was turning for home toward a place she'd never been. It was hot. The humidity was up, and thunder rolled far in the southwest. Moths plastered themselves on the screens, looking in at the candles, chasing the fire. He was falling into her now, and she into him. Unquote. Their love affair was as brief as a bolt of lightning out on the plains, and just as powerful. Summer Storms with Lovers and Other Strangers from CHFI.com. Josh Groban, Remember When It Rained. And Percy Sledge, When a Man Loves a Woman. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. This was recounted in the July 1988 issue of Glamour magazine, and I quote, "One windy summer night in the Thousand Islands, I sat on a dock, wrapped in a blanket, watching the big moon skim in and out of fat gray clouds, smelling the thick, fragrant country air, my mind far from ordinary cares." That to me is the essence of summer, an escape from everyday to something more powerful, universal, peaceful. Unquote. There's something about a summer storm that is also powerful enough to stir the emotions. This was condensed for the July 1980 issue of the Reader's Digest. It is from Ford Times and written by Nancy M. Peterson. And I quote, "Absorbed as I am in daily activities, it is some time before I realize that everything in nature has gone quiet. No birds chirp, no leaves rustle, no insects sing. Air that had been hot all day hangs heavy over the trees, presses the heads of the flowers to the ground, sits on my shoulder. With a vague feeling of uneasiness, I move to the window. There, in the west, lies the answer. Cloud has piled on cloud to form a ridge of mammoth thunderheads, billowing and rearing against the blue sky in massive, fanciful configurations. But the piercing whiteness of their shining towers does not last. Soon the thunderheads impose themselves before the late afternoon sun, and the day darkens early. A gust of wind whips the dust along the road. A door bangs shut. Curtains billow into the room. I rush to close the windows, empty the clothesline, secure the patio furnishings, feeling intimidated by the overwhelming threat of the storm. Thunder begins to grumble and growl in the distance. Unquote. More shortly with Lovers and Other Strangers from CHFI.com. Fleetwood Mac in Dreams, Romantika and Fantasie, and Phil Collins in the air tonight. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. The voices of the Tempest were legion, like an angry crowd chanting in a lost language. Torrents pounded and pried at the cedar siding, at the shingles, as if seeking entrance. Unquote. An excerpt from page 1, chapter 1 of The Taking by Dean Koontz, published in 2004 by Benton Books, a division of Random House. An incredible story. But more from this article by Nancy M. Peterson from Ford Times in Dearborn, Michigan, and published in August of 1979. She writes, and I quote, "The first drops of rain are huge. They splat into the dust, imprint the windows with individual signatures, and plink, plunk on the patio roof. Leaves shudder under the weight of water. and the walk wears a coat of shiny drops. Then, faster and faster, like the roll of drums, the individual drops become an army marching over fields and rooftops. A bolt of lightning stabs the earth. Heavens! Exclamation point. The storm is here. Second later, I jump at the sudden crack of thunder. No longer lurking far off, it rattles the window panes and sends the dog scurrying under a bed. The next bolt is even closer. It raises the hair on the back of my neck, and I take an involuntary step back. I know I should not be standing so near the window for safety's sake, but I cannot resist the show. The rain becomes a torrent, flung capriciously by a rising wind. Together they batter the trees and lay the grasses. Water streams off roofs and out of rain spouts. It pounds against the window in such a steady wash that I cannot see. How can so much fall so fast? How could the clouds have supported this colossal weight? Pacing through the house from window to window, I am moved to wonder. Look how the lilac bends under the assault, how the fronds of the daylilies are flattened, how the hillside steps are a new-made waterfall. Through the barrage now comes the thud of hail on the roof. More stones bounce white against the grass and splash into the puddles. But already the storm is passing. The tension is released from the atmosphere. The curtains of rain let in more light. And the thunder slams a final door. Unquote. The conclusion of the article by Nancy M. Peterson from Ford Times in Dearborn, Michigan, published in August of 1979. Shortly. With Lovers and Other Strangers. From CHFI.com. Colbie, Caillat, All Bubbly, and Sting with Fragile. Lovers and Other Strangers. From CHFI.com and iTunes. The roar of the storm escalated until they seemed to be inside the rumbling machinery that powered the universe. An excerpt from page 5, chapter 1 of The Taking by Dean Koontz, published in 2004 by Benton Books, a division of Random House. Nature has raised an army. Rain clouds marshaled by a gentle wind, storm-lit path, thunder step. I have seen 1,000 armies, but never one like this. Look at the cloud weeping. Listen to the thunder sighing. From time to time, the sun comes out between the sullen clouds, like a prisoner escaping his guard. An excerpt from a poem called Spring by Rudaki, and translated from the Persian by Jeffrey Squires. Worldwide, many people cover mirrors during a thunderstorm, believing that it is unlucky to see reflected lightning. An excerpt from the Reader's Digest edition, Why in the World? But the storm has passed, as storms always do. Thunder continues in the distance. The conclusion now of an article by Nancy M. Peterson from Ford Times in Dearborn, Michigan, and published in August of 1979. She writes, and I quote, I am drawn outside while the rain still falls. Even in the shelter of a roof, I am soon wet with the mist of spattered drops, but it is cool and welcome. I breathe deeply and watch the sun streak through the breaking clouds. One ray catches the drops that form on the edge of the roof, and I am treated to a row of tiny, quivering spectrums of color, my own private row of rainbows. In a few minutes, I can pick my way across the wet grass. The creek in the gully runs full of brown water, but the small, sudden lakes and puddles are already disappearing into the earth. The garden looks surprisingly unbattered. The trees have lost only a few leaves. Every brick, shingle, and blade of grass is fresh and shining. The air was never cleaner or sweeter. Like the land itself, I am renewed. My very spirit is cleansed. I feel an infinite peace, washed by the glories of the storm. Unquote. Nancy M. Peterson from Ford Times in Dearborn, Michigan, published in August of 1979. Lovers and Other Strangers from CHFI.com. Natasha Bedingfield, Unwritten. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. This is a writing called Needing Others, its author unknown. Many living things need each other to survive. If you have ever seen a Colorado aspen tree, you may have noticed that it does not grow alone. Aspens are found in clusters or groves. The reason is that the aspen sends up new shoots from the roots. In a small grove, all of the trees may actually be connected by their roots. Giant California redwood trees may tower 300 feet into the sky. It would seem that they would require extremely deep roots to anchor them against strong winds. But we're told that their roots are actually quite shallow, in order to capture as much surface water as possible. And they spread in all directions, intertwining with other redwoods. Locked together in this way, all the trees support each other in wind and storms. Like the aspen, they never stand alone. They need one another to survive. People, too, are connected by a system of roots. We are born to family and learn early to make friends. We are not meant to survive long without others. And like the redwood, we need to hold one another up. When pounded by the sometimes vicious storms of life, we need others to support and sustain us. Have you been going it alone? Maybe it's time to let someone else help hold you up for a while. Or perhaps someone needs to hang on to you. Lovers and Other Strangers from CHFI.com. I hope you'll tell all your friends about Lovers and Other Strangers from CHFI.com and iTunes. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.